G'day everybody, it's Hoody and time for a Canberra update, convoy update I guess. We started a road trip, didn't we, to go and see a truck show last week, and we had no idea what was going to develop, but what has been developing is pretty monumental. I've got some conclusions which I'll share with you towards the end. Before I do that, I want to share some logistical stuff with you that's been brought to my attention. Sadly, last night we left Canberra to come back and get surgeries done, which we can't put off because we live in a country where you can't guarantee that you're going to be able to rebook, you know. So we're almost home. We're just north of Port Macquarie at the moment, and staying with dear friends who've given us their hospitality. But after seeing what happened at the campground today in Canberra, we just wanted to turn around and come back. That stuff isn't good, but we had to expect it. I think the coverage from some of the guys who were streaming it was great. Cafe Locked-Out, Michael Gray Griffin, you're just a treasure, buddy. And you know, you don't go after all the big stuff. You love just talking with the people and getting their stories. And you were Johnny on the spot there, and I love the courageous way that the graceful way that you confront the police. But what we saw today was just pitiful. Before we go into what we saw today, I want to tell you what we saw yesterday. Yesterday was a horrendous day. Started out in the morning for us, at the top of Anzac Parade, in front of the War Memorial. We held a memorial service for the Anzacs, basically to reiterate that they died for our freedoms, but also to pay homage to them and apologise to them for the way we've collectively as a nation thrown those freedoms away for a cafe latte and smashed dabo on toast. And so I conducted a memorial service there, and we had a bugler there to play the last post. It was very reverent. There were, I don't know, 100 odd people there. It wasn't a huge gathering. Everyone was extremely respectful. And there wasn't a dry eye in the house, actually. It was a beautiful event. It lasted about 25 minutes. There's some videos floating around of it. And then we ventured back from there to the National Press Club in Canberra, where our illustrious Prime Minister was giving one of the most hypocritical speeches I've ever heard. What he was saying was an absolute disgrace. Anyhow, we rallied out the front of the National Press Club. I managed to stagger up on top of a truck, feeling my age with every step. And I said a few choice words to our Prime Minister from up there. And then I went back down, and we moved around to the side entrance of the National Press Club because we could tell by the police contingent there that he was going to exit the building there. And a large group of us gathered there. And that was amazing. But before we went around there was a police inspector who was commanding the police at the front of the building. A really nice guy, Scott. He was a nice guy. Anyhow, he was standing very close, and I walked over and made myself known to him. And as I walked up to him, he said, "How you going, digger?" I like that term. And he was just warm. I said, "Mate, I just want to say thank you for your patience with us, and you know, thank you for the way you're holding yourselves and carrying yourselves as a unit. And we're not here to cause you any trouble. We're actually here because we believe what we're fighting for affects you too." And he said, "Yeah, I get it, guys. You got to vent your spleen. I understand that. You got no problems with me. As long as it's peaceful, we're fine." And that was great. Then I got up on top of the bus, on top of the four-wheel drive, and made about a 15-minute speech castigating the Prime Minister. I got quite emotional knowing that he was so close. And I hopped off the bus and I went over to Scott, the police officer again, and the inspector, and I said, "Is there any chance you can get me to the door and get a message up to him saying that if he wants to talk to somebody who is happy to speak from the group outside, that I'm happy to talk with him privately. And he said words to the effect, you know, that won't happen. That's not going to happen. It just won't happen. He doesn't want to talk to you. You know that. Well, the reason he doesn't want to talk to me is because he doesn't have the courage. He doesn't have the courage. So anyway, we went around to the side entrance where it looked like it was pretty obvious that he was going to exit. And I positioned myself with John Larter at the curb of a U-shaped police cordon that was set up for him to be able to come out, turn left and get away from the building as fast as he could. I don't know, there were maybe 200 police there. They had the dog squad there. The dogs were very agitated. And the police were elbow to elbow. And I walked up in front of two young officers facing the entrance so that Morrison would see me the minute he drove out. Two young guys, I stood in front of them. One was a really big guy. And I stood about, I don't know, 18 inches in front of him, a couple of feet maybe. And he asked me to move back. To which I replied, no, that I'm a citizen of Australia and I've come to our seat of government and I have a right to be on this street and I have a right to stand where I am and I will not be moving. And he looked at me and he said, okay, mate, that's okay. Just don't come any closer. Is that all right? I said, yeah, that's okay. I'll just stand here. And then Johnny Larter and I ended up having a bit of banter like two old blokes as the crowd built up and people were getting more and more agitated. And we looked at each other and I said to John, I bet you never dreamt in your wildest dreams that at this stage of your life you'd be standing here doing this, eh? And he said, no, what were you going to do? I said, I thought I'd be fishing and cutting grass, you know. And the big copper laughed. He had a bit of a chuckle. So we just had that banter for a while. And a couple of guys next to us, coppers, were starting to warm up, you know. And one of them asked me about flying jets. And we talked to them about, aren't they hot? And about having to wear masks and all that. And you could tell by their eyes that wasn't really kosher for them to be there. Anyhow, as the moment came up, I noticed a couple of things. There was a woman pushed by a young constable about 3 police up from us. And what was interesting was she yelled abuse at the copper after she got pushed. And a very burly senior sergeant from up behind the group came walking down very steadfastly, walked outside the circle, turned between the woman and the constable and faced the constable face on, muttered something in his ear and then put his hand on his chest and pushed him back inside the circle, pointed his finger at him and gave him a lecture, and the guy disappeared and another officer came in and took his place. And I thought, that's good. These guys don't want any trouble. It was good. And then one of our number did something very provocative and drove his 4-wheel drive very fast around through a side street coming at the crowd and then hit the skids. And when we heard this vehicle racing down the side street, we thought, oh no, this guy's going to do something silly. And you could see the police tents up. And he stopped and got out of his car and stood belligerently with his arms folded, leaning up against the bull bar, and 2 police went over and got him to move. And the police officer that told me, you know, not to come any closer, he leaned over to me and he said, if this goes pear-shaped, I'm going to try and protect you and your wife, but if that doesn't work, run over beside that police van and stay on this side of it and you'll be protected and we'll do the best we can to protect you. And I thought that was really good. I thought it was really good. It gave me great hope. And he did a couple of other really nice things as well. And then when Morrison left, he sought me out long after the police had gone and the crowd had gone. And he walked up to me in the street. I was just about to do my radio show interviewing a couple of people. And he said, I'm glad you're here. He said, I just came to shake your hand and tell you that I really agree with what you're saying and what you're doing. And you're fighting for us to keep up the good work. As he walked away, I asked his name and he yelled it out. And I was pretty emotional because it was a beautiful moment for me. And then I called his name out again and I said, mate, you rock. And he looked at me and he said, so do you, old fella. And he walked away and I just got another taste of the spirit of Australia. And that was beautiful. And then we saw what happened today. And all that goodwill got undone by a manoeuvre that was designed to provoke and cause strife. A whole bunch of people coming onto the campground that everyone felt they had a permit to be on, and started provoking by taking down people's number plates so they could be fined for being there. One thing led to another, and there are some injuries, and the police used pepper spray, and there's enough live stream. You don't need me to describe it. But that sort of behaviour is just reprehensible. That doesn't belong in Australia, that stuff. So all the good work that was done the day before and the day before that gets undone by twits. Like the copper walking outside of Parliament House when the people were up at the door with a machine gun. Idiot. Why do you do stuff like that? You know, but at least the other police had the common sense to yell at him and tell him to go back inside. I mean, you know, these guys have been watching too much television. But I can tell you by looking at the faces of the young constables that we were standing up near, half of them didn't want to be there. You could tell that. You could tell. So what happened today was reprehensible, and those police officers need to hang their heads in shame. If you're doing that to earn a quid, and you're earning the quid, the people you're bulldozing and pepper spraying are there because they don't earn a quid because they're not allowed to. So shame on you. And I hope your brother officers tear a few strips off you. Whoever was commanding that operation was an idiot. No sense of community policing, no sense of command. There's no way any commander in his right mind would have done what he did there today. It was just over-dramatised. It was stupid. And what, just to take a few number plates? Anyhow, so where do we stand with the police in Canberra? We don't know. The AFP have always been, I remember when they used to be called the Commonwealth Police. Anyhow, they're the Australian Federal Police now. They've always been pretty good, laid back. And I thought that was the case yesterday too, but today they've had a mood swing. Probably because I might have upset Barnaby Joyce when I yelled at him yesterday. So where does that leave us for what's coming up? Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. But having mentioned Barnaby Joyce, I've been criticised for yelling out at him on the megaphone and calling him a mongrel dog. That was irreverent. And I tell you, based on his behaviour, I happen to agree with you. It was irreverent, and I do apologise for that. I do rate mongrel dogs a bit higher than associating them with Barnaby Joyce. Some have said to me it's not Christian to do what I did, that I've been preaching for everyone to treat others with respect. But respect when it comes from a public figure must be earned. Must be earned. And he's done nothing to bathe himself in glory, that man. And he's our Deputy Prime Minister. But what he did yesterday deserved the label. Because when cars were driving out and getting away swiftly, Barnaby decides to make a grandstand exit. So with all the media watching and the mainstream media filming, Barnaby decides to walk out into the street where the protesters are and parade up and down the street like a glorified clown under a big hat. He was doing that designed to provoke and to show the mainstream media what a courageous man he was. But was he courageous? He was flanked by 200 police officers. Nobody could get anywhere near him. And I beckoned him to come and talk to me. And I knew he wouldn't because he doesn't have the backbone for that sort of thing. And so as he displayed like a peacock up and down the street, trying to get a fight going, trying to discredit those freedom fighters who were there in front of mainstream media who would have loved to have seen that and filmed it and reported on it. He did what he did. Now, for that kind of behaviour from the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia, the man who's designed to lead this country was elected to lead this country in the absence of the Prime Minister, which could have been any day because the Prime Minister's been absent for years. Do we want someone like that in control? Do we want a circus clown in control of our nation? So for those of you who think it was irreverent for me to say that to Barnaby Joyce, and they said it wasn't Christian for me to say that, I'll remind you that Jesus referred to the Pharisees as a nest of vipers. So I don't think referring to a clown is meant to be helping to run this country as a mongrel. I don't think I need to apologise for that. And I think if you were there, you would understand. And many have seen my anger yesterday and said, you're not practicing what you preach. Righteous indignation. I'm angry. I wouldn't be down there if I wasn't angry. I made the video because I was angry. And I'm still angry. But I can do it peaceably. So if I've offended anybody by what I did yesterday, then I apologise. And if you're criticising me for an armchair in Sydney or Brisbane or Melbourne, get your bum out of the armchair and get to Canberra. And when you're standing there in front of these people and with your fellow Australians, and you've experienced that for a little while, then come and criticise me. Until then, keep your opinions to yourself with due respect. Because this is where we're at. There are convoys heading for Canberra every day, and that crowd is going to grow. I heard of a 25 truck convoy that's left Rockhampton and will be there probably tomorrow. We get to Canberra, we win this, but only on a couple of provisions. One of those is we come to Canberra peacefully, we act with decency and respect, we act with a cool head, we do not come to provoke the police, we treat the police as they should be treated. It's hard to say with respect after what they did today, but there comes a time when you're up against a Rottweiler that you have to respect it and keep your distance. So do that. But know this, you are an Australian citizen, you are heading for the seat of government in Canberra, and you have every right on a federal highway to do that, and you have every right to be in your nation's capital. You cannot be denied your right to be there. So my friends, go there, because as soon as we've finished our surgical procedures, we're going back. And I've got friends on the ground there now, and I've got friends who left there yesterday who are coming back tenfold over the weekend, and it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, okay, you may not all be able to camp around near the National Library where the group is at the moment. Who knows where you'll camp, but it doesn't matter. Come well provisioned. Bring some clothes and all the other basic requirements that you need to. Know that there's a lot of food and water being donated. A lot of goods and chattels are being donated. And there's some cash floating around for people who need it to cover the cost of their fuels. I know that. There's people giving money all along the way. But from what I'm hearing, Michael Gray Griffin said today, from what they're hearing from the police, there could be roadblocks. There could be some impediment to you entering Canberra. So it's suggested, and it's up to you, but it is highly suggested if you're travelling a long way, that any paraphernalia you have on your car or any slogans painted on it or anything, flags, etc., clean them all off, put all that stuff in the boot of your car and come in incognito. Then when you get to where everybody is, then dress your car up, then get your rally gear out and start fighting for freedom. And I don't mean fisticuff fighting, I mean having your say, being present when things are happening. Now, I've been in contact with some people who've contacted me after the last couple of days inside Canberra. And I can tell you that if we're there in number when Parliament resumes, and they're sitting for 2 weeks, and I think that starts next week, if we're there in number, then there is a bunch of people who occupy the chamber, who are elected, who are going to come out and talk to you. Now, this is a big move, because once a few of them start coming out to talk to you, I reckon there may well be a domino effect. And if that happens, it's a whole new ball game. So, what do I think about this venture in Canberra? Nobody seems to be organising it, but you, the people. It started from an initiative from a truck driver, a couple of truck drivers perhaps in WA, who said enough's enough. And as a result of that, a whole bunch of other people said enough's enough, me included. So we're going to the seat of the garbage we've been living in for the last 2 years, and we're going to tell them that enough is enough. I know for a fact that Scott Morrison is on the ropes. He will not win the next election. I know for almost certainty that if he doesn't win it, then Anthony Albanese will, and become the next Prime Minister, unless something drastic happens. If Anthony Albanese becomes the next Prime Minister, I ask you to look at the state premiers that are causing the most grief in the country at the moment. I'm talking about McGowan, Andrews and Palaszczuk. They're all Labor. So if they're an indication of what Labor government has in store for the people of this country, then why should National Labor be any different? A vote for Albanese is a disaster. But so what happens if he becomes Prime Minister? Well, that depends on how you vote in relation to the minor parties and the independents. Because if we've got enough people in the right places, then they've got to seek our approval for pretty much everything that goes down. And that's a whole lot better than what we've got happening now. Isn't it interesting how Jackie Lambie seems to be very quiet? The lady who you would have thought would have been the champion for what's been going on with the people in Canberra at the moment seems to have had some kind of a mental aberration and has now painted herself into a corner. She's not the people's fighter anymore. A lot of people have shown their real colours. So we're in a unique position. The other indication that's very uplifting for me is the way mainstream media is starting to loosen their grip, and they're starting to show signs of weakening, and they're starting to open the back door for an exit. Why? Because they rely on popularity, on ratings. And when the people aren't happy, and they're not happy with the mainstream media, then you mark my words, when the truth starts to out, the mainstream media will pretend that they were working undercover to uncover that truth all the way along. And there'll be blistering news items and current affairs items from top-class investigative journalists who've spent years behind the scenes undercover working on the lies and deceptions that have been perpetrated on the Australian people. And I think the Australian people are going to be a wake-up to that. So it doesn't cut, guys. I do appreciate Channel 10's coverage of what happened yesterday and the fact that they interviewed me. I was very impressed with Al Jazeera, who interviewed me yesterday. I haven't seen what went to air for them, but they were fair and reasonable, and they hung around to give me as much time as we could. And that was great. So reluctantly, we left Canberra this morning very early, and our heart is still back there, because I've got to tell any of you who are thinking about going to Canberra, just do it. Just do it, because the atmosphere amongst the people who are there is so heartwarming. That's a massive family building down there. This is our new family. And we are being noticed. But as an old bloke with grey hair, and an old bloke who's seen a few things in his life and experienced a few things personally, I want to tell you what I reckon is a good idea for you not to do. And it's up to you, because you're all angry, and I understand your emotion. Don't provoke the police. If somebody hands you a megaphone, please try not to use the F-bomb all the time. I know it's part of everyday common language, but I find it offensive on the ear for me. And a lot of women do, especially the elderly women who are there. And I interviewed a couple of elderly women this morning who have been attending these rallies, and they're beautiful ladies. There's no need for that kind of language. So let's try and limit that language. Let's try and present ourselves as respectable, firm and angry, yes, but respectable. Don't countenance any violence. I saw a Trump flag, make America great again, and so did the media. I understand the sentiment, but I don't care whether America's great again or not, to be honest with you. I'm an Aussie. I want Australia to be great again. So think about those kind of things. Think about any kind of behaviour or symbolism that can be amplified by mainstream media to make everyone look like crackpots. It's not going to win. The more respectable, the more compassionate, the more caring we are. Even though I called the PM and the Deputy PM mongrels yesterday, I still offered out an olive branch. I offered for Barnaby Joyce to come and talk to me, and he wouldn't. So that's where it's at. If we play the game that way and calmly go about our business, we will win. As sure as I'm sitting here, I can taste it. And what does that win mean? It means we all get our freedoms back. Even the people who've been jabbed, who don't even consider they've lost their freedoms at the moment, but they are, and they have. We all get our freedoms back. We get our country back. We can start having a normal life. We get our jobs back. But we get a different normal. A normal where people really matter and where we're compassionate and caring for one another. So that's where we're at the moment. We're going to get back there as soon as we can. We've got some recovery to do from surgeries when we get them done next week. But just please be safe. Please keep going to Canberra. Don't let the police antagonism of today turn you off. If you don't find your way into the city, then you can camp outside the city. There's places you'll be able to stay. There's plenty of food and water going to be available for you. Just be prepared and come prepared. And if you have to leave, you leave and you come back again. But we have to keep returning to our seat of government. We must. Now, I don't know what's happening on Saturday, but I have heard that there is an attempt to get people gathered at 11 o'clock around the old Parliament House. I'm not sure whether that's going ahead or not. Papers have been served on the Governor-General. Notice of prohibition has been served on the Governor-General. He has accepted receipt of that service. And I believe we want to get a photo opportunity with as many people as possible to support that service on the Governor-General, because they need to know that the Australian people are taking this seriously. So whatever guidance, whatever instructions you're given about that, I won't give them to you now because I'm not going to be there. Regrettably, I'd love to be there. But the people on the ground who are setting all this stuff up, follow them, get involved in the social medias, keep an eye on what they're doing. I know it's disjointed. I know it seems fragmented, but it's working. It really is working. This is your movement. It's the people's movement for the people's freedom. So let's do it let's keep ourselves nice. I know I'm old-fashioned, but I reckon it'll work. Or don't. It doesn't matter. We just do what we do with what we got. Anyway, lots of love to you all, and let's have a prayer. Dear God, Father in heaven, we praise and honour you, Lord, and we ask you to be with our people in Canberra and those on the road travelling, Lord, that you would keep them safe and bless them. Father in heaven, what a blessing it was to be there amongst family. And what a blessing it was to see their faces and see the pride they had in their attendance at the rallies and what they were doing, and they felt like they were part of something and they're everyday mums and dads, Lord, and you brought them there. So, Father, if you brought them there, protect them, keep them safe, and keep them nice. And Lord, if we follow your basic principles of life in this situation and we find ourselves in, we will win. In fact, Lord, I reckon we've won already because of what this has created in the new tier in Australia. So may you, Lord, protect your people, watch over them, keep them safe. For goodness sake, we pray, Lord, that you will inject some common sense into the police and those who order them around, and that some of those police will say, hang on, this is stupid. We don't want to go down this road anymore. They are meant to serve us. And by what happened today, they were not serving the people of Australia. They were serving someone else. So, Lord, guide and lead us is our prayer. You love your people. I love your people. We are one and we are many. And from all the lands on earth we come. We share a dream and speak with one voice. I am, you are, we are Australian. I stand, you stand. I fall, you fall. God bless you. Stay out of the trees and hopefully talk tomorrow. God bless. Good night. Keep safe, guys. Wish we were there.